Yeah, thanks to Vancouver Startup Week for giving us the opportunity to give a talk, and I'll just jump right into it. I'm going to talk a little bit about what Ascension Sciences does, and then describe a little bit about how the idea for the company came about, and some challenges and successes. I kind of tried to focus this on our story. I'm not going to delve very deeply into our technology necessarily. This is more about, again, how to maybe start a biotech, but yeah, feel free to ask questions if you like in the chat about, more details on nanoparticles and the like. The other disclaimer here is that Ascension Sciences is very much still in startup phase, and this is all opinion, all the things I'm going to talk about, and, we're doing some things right and some things wrong, and we're learning along the way. So Ascension Sciences is an R&D laboratory focused on transforming cannabinoid therapies through nanotechnology. So lots of big words there. Cannabinoids are the active compounds based off of the cannabis plant, and of all the therapeutic benefits out there, including pain and nausea improvements, nanoparticles are a key part of formulating these compounds, because they can deliver them more efficiently, more bioavailable into the blood, instead of passing them through your liver. Is kind of the future of how these compounds are going to help people, outside of smoking and taking gummies and the like. So part of the reason we're looking at cannabinoids is the health aspect. Since even the 1800s, a huge pharmaceutical company called Eli Lilly has had these on the market. In the 1980s, Sativex and Marinol, these types of drugs that are cannabinoids have been available. So, whereas regulations are changing for recreational use, these have been, around for a long time. And Canada is at the forefront of a lot of these therapies and research. Up to 72 clinical trials as a proportion of the 500 plus that are happening around the world. Canada is a good place to be doing the research for these things. And there's a lot of evidence. The bullets there, and you're right, are for clinically proven, very robust studies that demonstrate the efficacy of these drugs. And there's a long list of ones of indications where, the research is ongoing, and that's, again, the space that Ascension Sciences is looking to play in. So when it comes to the drug development pipeline, Ascension Sciences is very much at the beginning, drug discovery, preclinical. So the fun thing about cannabinoids is that the drug is available, it exists. You're not trying to screen these compounds. So it's kind of a backwards way of developing. You know what the drug is, but you don't quite know what it does. And for us as formulation scientists, that presents an opportunity. And that's one of the reasons we like to get into this space. It just kind of lowered the barrier for us. The other thing about the drug development pipeline, as we see it, is there's a few exit points. So if you're not really wanting to take a cannabinoid drug all the way through FDA approval as a therapeutic, you, for argument's sake, could exit the pipeline and just go into the recreational market, or exit the pipeline a little later and be a natural health product. So again, it leaves options open, and as a small business, that's been attractive to us. Now, after that introduction, I wanted to delve into how the idea for the company started. So I think to do that, I have to give some of my background, and also a background of how I saw different opportunities that I was considering. So I'm an engineer by training in biomedical engineering. I did some medical robotics. I did some genetic medicine formulation, more on the business side. So all that to say, I've been kind of in the health and medical side of my career, or throughout my career. And when I looked at ideas I had, around tables, talking to friends, whether it's starting a little app or a website or even a piece of technology, compared to drug development and biotech, there are some significant differences. And going through them here in this table, and this is all fairly high level, but if you're starting an app, you and me and everybody around us are potential customers. There's lots of accessible people. In biotech, it's drug development companies, it's going through hospitals, it's doctors, it's larger entities. There's ways you need to get in to reach these customers or potential market touch points just to talk to them and understand things. So that's something to very much consider. In terms of the competition, if you're launching an app or a website, there's always somebody trying that approach. Always new kids on the block. I've perhaps dated myself with that acronym, but there's always somebody trying to there. In the drug development side of things, these companies have been around for hundreds of years. They're large, they're established. Ultimately, you have to come up with a fairly compelling reason why you can outcompete somebody who has 20 times, 100 times the amount of money you have. And that goes to the capital required. Again, with a computer, you can get a lot done. In biotech, the start part of it is quite intensive. You need $2,000, $3,000, $50,000 instruments. You need to hire the PhDs to get these done. At the end of the day, you're not just coming up with an idea in your basement from that sense. And that goes to the timeline. Ideas for biotech need to be vetted with bench scale data, then small animal data, then into humans, on and on. Your MVP might work in animals, not in humans. The data is always getting layered and supporting each other through your journey. What you can say though is that you're adding value at each of those stages. On a computer and in your app, you can launch it, iterate, improve it, and be making money for revenue fairly quickly. On the IP side, patents are required, that's what adds value in the biotech world, whereas in apps and networks or websites, it's the data, and it's trademarks, things of that nature. And then on the team side, again, in biotech, it's experience. You need a proven track record. It's people that have done this before, and that's a significant challenge for a company like ours. I have some experience, but I've never actually launched a drug completely. So I look for advisors and things of that nature to bolster our brand, bolster the company. So with that kind of frame of mind about the differences, how do you even have an idea in biotech to bring it to market or to the next phase of development? And that's where I kind of came up with this infographic. It's what I'm trying to say here is that you need the help of a lot of different players, and ultimately your idea in biotech is most efficiently developed using government grants and university labs. So on the far left, people at UBC, there's an University Industrial Liaison Office, the UILO, and they have patents and technologies. You can go to their website and you can license that technology and have your startup, built from that point forward. Another way to do it is if you had the idea yourself, you go through government grants, IRAP, NSERC, MyTax, Innovate BC, and what they do is help you engage with the university. So there's 3 people at the table, and you're giving money to the university, but you get more for your dollar. If I put in $1, the university will give me $4 in services, for example. And that way, I don't need to buy any of the lab equipment. I don't need the licensing to manipulate animals or buy solvents and all the crazy things that you would need to develop your technology. The university has all that. You can start up much more quickly. And what I'm trying to say for Ascension Sciences is we're kind of in the SME startup phase, but also playing in the contract research phase. So we're trying to provide services to people also starting their companies. And that's certainly been a challenge for us. But what it's allowed us to do is not necessarily have a platform technology that we're selling, but generate some cash and become a bigger company in time to reach enough people with a platform once it's available. And we have all the grants developing that technology now. So getting to the idea of where Ascension started, we have our grants, but even before that, in the back of my mind, I was always trying to talk to different people and have different ideas for the way a business could start. And this goes back to high school. I wanted to carve pumpkins and sell, super duper fancy pumpkins. That didn't work for a number of operational reasons. In the next picture, in the robotics, surgical robotics arena, I had an idea to sharpen the instruments. Oh, excuse me for the message. And then I had a 3D printing idea, and then a bioinformatics idea. And I'm sure in biotech, you're not going to have an idea to develop the next drug. That's I wouldn't recommend. It's too big. But all that to say is that Mark is right. That you always need to just understand how far you can take an idea. And once I got to the nanoparticle side of my career, I started to see opportunities where the technology, or the box on the right, called a nanoassembler, could be applied to a different stream. So if the nanoassembler is used for genetic medicine nanoparticles, but what about putting cannabinoids into those particles? Could that technology in this area be brought over to another area? And in assessing the technology risk, that seemed possible. The market risk seemed low to me at the time. That's when cannabis the industry was taking off. Regulatory options were on the table. Despite it still being illegal in a lot of places for recreational, the drug path is certainly very clear. The funding risk, is medium at this stage for us. The grants have been great, but certainly the CRO business model was something that attracted, again, a fund creation or a pool of money that we could use to develop our own IP. And again, that goes to this contract research where people pay us to put their cannabinoids into nanoparticles or proprietary delivery systems. We can license these out, or we can retain the license and bring them to market. It leaves options open. I get a lot of criticisms about that approach. It's been a challenge, and it's not a venture style business. It's a generating cash business. But we're making a go of it, and ultimately there's some pivots available to us, but we need to decide on the right course of action in any given quarter. But again, we're still in startup mode and learning from our mistakes, I should say. So this is a quick timeline of how we started. We were incorporated in January 2019. Kind of the classic story where I started in one of the bedrooms at home. One of the early successes or things we did was working with Langara College. So we had lab space almost immediately, which was an advantage. I moved into our own space, and we have our R&D license through Health Canada, and that's what you're looking at behind me. And in the next months, we're really looking out to solidify some contracts and again bring in that cash to develop our own platforms. So what have been the challenges? For us, there's a number of them, obviously. I'll focus on the three bold ones. It's the understanding of the market and competitors has been very difficult. And it goes towards, everybody thinks your idea is great, and you have to understand who's telling the truth, or who is painting a rosy picture on it, and how far their timelines are. So with as many people as we've talked to, everybody thinks nanoparticles are the next best thing, but where's the slice that we can focus on and we can have immediate success as a business? That's been much harder to tease out, and especially because cannabinoids have a number of markets, the rec market, health product market, therapeutic market. On any given day, I'm trying to see maybe a hop or a skip, or putting our toe into all these other options might be necessary. But again, everybody has their own opinions. You have to collect the data for yourself and make the decisions for yourself. And that goes towards a trust and belief, just being, doing the research yourself and trusting your path. COVID-19, whether it's the cannabis market tanking and then investment dollars drying up in that area, or COVID, the long story or the short story is that times are tight. It also has presented us with some opportunities. The government grants based on COVID, the wage subsidies have been helpful. So it's a blessing and a curse, but it's something we're all living through. And I think now that companies are up and running again, R&D is something that is starting to be a conversation piece. And in budgets, the first thing to get cut is R&D, which is the people I'm trying to reach. So it's a bit of a waiting game, and still continues to be a challenge. What has worked well for us? At the end of the day, it's all very interpersonal. Reaching people and engaging them for R&D development. So networking and reaching people at Langara College, where our first lab was. We continue to do work there. Most of our interns have come from there. Getting some of these key partnerships in place has helped a small company, and just elevating our brand, elevating the stature of our company, whether it's marketing or just being able to say that we know Kelly Svensson at Langara. There's your shout out. It's everything when getting to the next conversation with groups. Grants have been a huge benefit to us. Like at the peak of the summer, we had upwards of 6 grants. All our interns were pretty much fully paid, except for taxes, things of this nature. So Canada is a very helpful country when it comes to getting small companies out of the gate. The trick is getting past the grants and getting your revenues up, so you don't need to rely on them anymore. But it's been our lifeline up to this point. And then the last one I wanted to mention was the free help, or helping for free. Again, we need to get projects to demonstrate our capabilities, and that's stuff we've done for groups to build out our project list, because inevitably the first thing people ask for is, what have you done before, and has it been successful? So that's a list that's slowly built out over time, and now it's quite impressive, and it's been on the grants and for groups that have needed some initial data, and now those are strong relationships to move forward. From to wrap it up, or leave a little time for conversation here, the takeaways is that the network has been everything for us, and don't underestimate how long that takes. When I started the company, I thought I knew enough people, or I thought there were enough phone numbers I could call, but really it's only starting to take off now, I would say. So 18 months into the process of networking and building people around me, is it really a strong foundation for us? So always being engaged is important. And that's the second bullet, participating in Startup Week. That's a huge deal. Chatting anybody up on the chat bar and connecting with people, that's a demonstration of passion and interest in what's happening. I think that comes across very clearly when you're working with others. The other kind of mantra that I have personally is the do more than nothing approach, and you'd be surprised how much just builds up over time. It always seemed to me that I was getting lapped by people that had ideas, or again launched a website or a marketing consultancy, and I was like, why? What's my problem? And then I just started picking away at little spreadsheets that I would compile and searches, and all that over time builds up. So it's a matter of just getting started sometimes. If it wasn't obvious before, in biotech, you can't do it yourself. You need academia to be your lab, your resource in the early going. And then the last point, just as far as the networking, how people come across, I think it goes in any walk of life. I would just leave you at the fact that you need to be a coachable person, always respectful and understanding, patient, empathetic. I think that, as opposed to just necessarily that sort of I know everything attitude, I think is somewhat a thing of the past, but it's something that hits home with all of us at Ascension Sciences. We're a pretty close group at this point, and I think it's ultimately what's going to make us successful.